Hey everyone, welcome to another whiteboard video where we're going to be talking about reaching financial independence. That's a very big part of my channel, talking about my journey as I attempt to reach financial independence, but I want to talk about it more generally in how to approach financial independence and how to actually get there, since it's often overcomplicated. A lot of people make these big promises on, hey, you just got to invest in this one super speculative thing to reach financial independence quickly. And what I mean by financial independence is reaching a point where your investments or your business or something more passively takes care of all of your expenses so that you don't have to work in a particular job that you don't like, and you generally have control over your time again. It's kind of that ultimate level of freedom in that you don't have to worry about your finances nearly as much because it's taken care of by all of the hard work you've done in building your portfolio. But it can also be pretty intimidating. Even though reaching financial independence is really simple to do, it doesn't mean it's easy by any means, and it's often very hard unless you have some massive windfall or inheritance that makes it very easy to reach financial independence. For most of us, you're going to have to do some work to actually get there, but it doesn't mean it has to be all of that complicated. So in this video, I want to put reaching financial independence into simple terms, how to actually get there and how to potentially accelerate it in a pretty significant way. Now, as with many things in finance, we have to start with the end point. Where are we actually trying to get to? What is the financial independence sort of number that we're looking for? How big does the portfolio have to be? And one simple rule of thumb that a lot of people use is something called the 4% rule. And this implies that you need to get to the point where your portfolio, you could take out 4% of that portfolio every single year, and that would cover all of your annual expenses. And if all goes well, because you're only taking out 4% of the portfolio, a lot of studies show that the portfolio will continue to grow to the point where you actually never run out of money. So it's sort of a sustainable way to take money out of your portfolio without actually bringing it all the way down to zero. Now, there is some data that suggests that the 4% rule isn't really the safest approach, and that probably would make sense to go down to maybe a 3% withdrawal rate, though it totally depends on what actually happens in the future, and we don't really know what exactly will happen. But for now, we're going to go ahead and use the 4% rule because it is an often cited rule and it does make a lot of sense. You can always adjust this number as you see fit. So we have this 4% rule, and that implies that we need to have a portfolio that is 25 times our annual expenses, which is simply 100% divided by 4 gets you 25 times. So 25 times annual expenses. That is how big this portfolio needs to be. And if we can get to that point, that would imply that you could keep paying your annual expenses forever because you'd be able to meet this 4% rule. So now the question becomes, how do you get to this 25 times your annual expenses number? That's what you're striving for now. So how long would that take to get there, and what do you really need to do it? So now we're getting into Finance 101, where you have to spend less than you make so that you can actually save some money and then invest it and build up this 25 times annual expenses portfolio. So let's start with the average case. The average American has something like a 7% savings rate. Go ahead and bump this up to 10% just to keep it a round number and make it a little bit easier to calculate. So we have a 10% savings rate. I'll say SR for savings rate. With a 10% savings rate, that would imply that your annual budget is 90% of your income. You are spending 90% of it and you're only saving 10% of it every year. So that means it takes you 9 years to reach 1 year of expenses. So we'll say 9 years per year, if that makes sense, which would imply that in order to get 25 years of expenses saved up, it would take you 9 times 25 or 225 years to reach financial independence to meet this 4% rule. Now, of course, this doesn't take into account that the savings that you save up during this time would be getting invested most likely, and that those investments would grow from there. So this is really just kind of cash savings that you need to build up. So it's not a totally accurate example, but the point is it would take you a very long time to get here with only a 10% savings rate, where you're fully financially independent and don't have to actually dip into your principal because you're using that 4% rule. So it can go on forever theoretically. Even if you cut this amount of time in half or in the thirds or even quarters, it's still a very long time to actually reach that financial independence number. So even if you're investing it and things are compounding, it's going to take a long time. But you might be saying, haha, Jack, I would save way more than 10% per year. Let's bump this up to 20%. The 20% savings rate, SR. And this would imply that you're spending 80% of your annual income towards your expenses, which would mean that if you're saving 20%, it would take you 4 years to reach 1 year of expenses saved up. That would mean if it took you 4 years to save up 1 year of expenses, to get to this 25 times annual expenses number, multiply 4 times 25, that means it takes 100 years to get to financial independence. Again, assuming you're meeting this 4% rule, And again, it probably would be quicker in actuality if you're investing it and things are compounding during this time, but still taking a very long time to get there. But you still laugh at me. You say that 20% is far too low. I would save 50% of my income. So we're now talking about a 50% savings rate, which would be very significant. So 50% would imply that every single year, you're also saving 1 year of expenses because your budget is 50% of your income, but you're saving 50% of your income at the same time. So hopefully that makes sense. That means we're at 1 year to get to 1 year of expenses. So 1 year per year, which would imply that to get to 25 times your annual expenses saved up would take you 25 years. So still a pretty long time, but all things considered, this is far shorter than the average career, and you're really getting to a place pretty quickly. Again, this is without assuming any investment growth, which would probably speed this up by quite a bit. I just noticed my writing is kind of slanting downward, so I apologize for that. I'm still pretty new to this whiteboard game. But these savings rates, we gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket. So let's bump this up to 80% savings rate. So you're saving the vast majority of your income every year to actually put towards your savings and investment, which means your annual spending is only 20% of your income, but you're saving 4 times that, which means that it takes you a quarter of a year or 0.25 years per year of expenses saved up. So it takes you less than a year, a quarter of a year to actually save up a year of expenses, which means if you divide this 25 by 4, you're gonna get to about 6.25 years. So 6.25 years to reach financial independence with this 4% rule sort of threshold that we're going for. And as a cherry on top, let's just go ahead and do a 90% savings rate. So you're saving almost all of your income. Your budget is 10% of your annual income. You're saving 9 times that, which means it takes you 1/9 of a year to actually reach 1 year of expenses saved. So that's 11% of a year. So 0.11 years per year to save up a year of expenses, which means it would take you only about 2.78 years to reach financial independence. I did that math before this video, 2.78 years with a 90% savings rate, assuming you maintain that same budget once you actually get to retirement. And this is when you hit that 4% rule. So it's much quicker, under 3 years, if you're saving 90% of your income, which is no easy feat. Now notice what happened here. When we went from a 10% savings rate all the way up to a 90% savings rate, that is only a 9x. I mean, that's a significant jump, of course, but it's only a 9x compared to dividing basically 225 years by 100. So it's almost a 100x difference between the two to actually reach financial independence. And again, this is only with a 9x difference. And the reason that's the case is because when you raise your savings rate, you're effectively lowering your spending rate as well, even though your actual expenses might be fixed. But if you find a way to either raise your income or lower your expenses, they work towards getting to this goal that much quicker because now your budget is less. So this number comes down, but also your net income, your savings rate is more, so you actually can save more money and get there faster. Now in this example, I am assuming that you maintain the same expenses into financial independence. So whatever your spending was in any of these cases would be the same spending that you'd have for your financial independence number. And if you want to live a lavish lifestyle in financial independence well beyond what you're currently spending, then of course you can bump this number up. But to reach your sort of baseline level of financial independence with expenses that you know you can maintain and that you're already going through right now effectively, then this would be the way to kind of figure out your pacing on how to get there. And the focus here would be to try and figure out how to boost this savings rate. That could be through boosting your income, that could be through cutting your expenses, or a combination of both ideally if that's feasible enough. But that's really the main point here, is that you can dramatically accelerate your path towards financial independence if you focus on the basics right here, and that's getting that savings rate up. So look for new ways to boost your income, don't let your expenses get out of control, and you can really do a lot with a pretty short period of time, all things considered. But ideally, this shows that reaching financial independence doesn't have to be complicated, and it's really not complicated, even though it might be difficult along the way, maintaining that discipline, maintaining your savings rate, or even boosting it to try and accelerate your path to that ever-coveted status of financially independent. Otherwise, if you like this video, definitely like it since that would help the channel out a lot, and be sure to subscribe since I put out new videos every single week. Until next time, take care.